Well, the NFC North is certainly a division to watch this season, and their first week of preseason games is in the book. Take a look at the results. The Lions beating the Falcons, the Vikings beating the Texans, the Packers losing to the Jets, and the Bears, well, tying with the Dolphins. For more, we welcome in our NFC North experts. That would be Kyle Long and Mike Renner. Let's start with the Chicago Bears. Their first preseason game ended in a tie. First thing we need to address, that offensive line, a major focal point for them this season. They've emphasized looking for better cohesion, communication, chemistry on this revamped O-line. Kyle, what are they showing us through these first preseason reps?
Well, that's it. Cohesion and chemistry. Those are the things that Bears fans are going to be keeping their eyes on as it pertains to this offense. Everybody wants to watch Caleb, and I'm sure Mike's going to talk about it because it's very important. But for the offensive line, a few new faces in the building. I got a chance to speak with Drew Dahlman. He just talked about being on the same page with the rest of the guys in that building, because when they see things through the same set of eyes, they're all seeing the same thing. Caleb will as well. It'll help out this offense immensely. And that's been the issue before. You know, we've got a few good players here and there on the offensive line, but it's never been a good unit. Well, for a long time at least. Now they have an opportunity to do that. They need to shore up that chemistry before the season starts.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the offensive line needs to improve and will improve. But I'm looking at the guy behind it, because it was not an untenable unit last year. It wasn't a good unit, but it should not have been as bad as it looked at times last season, because Caleb Williams just has to play faster. His timing has to improve in this offense, and Ben Johnson requires that, right? He is going to improve his timing. But I'm more worried about holding out of the football, taking those negative plays, those sacks. He had the highest pressure to sack conversion ratio of any quarterback in the NFL. Anything over 25% is bad. He was at 28.2% last year. So that means that when the pressure came, Caleb turned into a turtle more often than not. That can't be the case in year two. If that improves, this offense gets on schedule, the O-line improves, the run game gets on schedule, you might have a high-level offense.
Absolutely, and Chicago Bears fans are certainly hoping you're right. They've suffered enough, right, guys? All right, let's move on to the Bears' rival in the Green Bay Packers. We saw some struggles in that preseason game, specifically at the wide receiver position. Matthew Golden was really the only one who could hold his head high after that. What are we looking at for that position, Kyle?
Well, that's exactly what they're looking at. You know, Matthew Golden, how high can this young receiver take this offense? Because obviously we've seen Jordan Love can distribute the football to the guys that are on the roster currently at the receiver position. Not a lot of worries there. They've got some tight ends in the mix as well. But this young player, Matthew Golden, has the ability to take the top off the defense. He's doing so in that butt ugly 22 as well, which tells you he's a dang good football player. Anytime you see a guy that has got a number that makes you scratch your head, he's probably pretty darn good and confident wearing it. They're going to need him to have that confidence this year to be the true number one. Open up everything else for Jordan Love.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about this offense, quite frankly. I think it's going to get back to that level we saw a couple years ago down the stretch when it was humming, when they beat the Cowboys in the playoffs. I'm worried about this pass rush because they didn't add anything to it this offseason, because they've already spent 4 first-round picks on it. You got Rashawn Gary, you got Kenny Clark, you got Devontae Wyatt, you got Lucas Van Ness. These guys need to play like the former first-round picks that they all are. That's what I'm looking for. They obviously fired the defensive line coach from a season ago. These guys need to get pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. 17th in PFF pass rushing grade last year, bottom 10 in pressure rate from that front four. That needs to improve, or else they're not going to replicate the success they had last year defensively.
All right, let's take a look now at the Minnesota Vikings. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy made a solid return in their preseason win, but we have to address the work-in-progress cornerback group. Looking for some of those guys at that position to step up after seeing some vets at that position leave. And all eyes were also on the coordinators for the Lions let's go back. Vikings, go, Kyle.
Well, for the Vikings, obviously, you touched on it there at the beginning. J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback transition. Anytime there's a regime or administration change at the quarterback position, all eyes are on it. You add onto that the fact that this is a young man dealing with rehabbing, coming off of a knee, who was in his rookie year when he dealt with that knee injury. Oh, yeah, he had no regular season or NFL action. The guy was shut down early in the season. So for the Minnesota Vikings, everything will go through what J.J. McCarthy has the ability to do. Can he digest all the information that Kevin O'Connell is trying to put on his plate? Because the keys to the car have been handed to him, and the Ferrari works. We've seen it before. We saw it with Sam Darnold. So does he have the skill to get in there and be baby driver in Minnesota? That's really the question mark for me. And that offensive line. They've imported some talent along the interior of that offensive line. The entirety of that front, the big question is, can they stay healthy? They've got a good unit. And an unhealthy good unit is not a good unit, by the way.
Yeah, I think they're only going as far as J.J. McCarthy takes them. But J.J. McCarthy could get them in the, in the area, and this secondary could let them down. That's what I'm going to be honed in on, is these cornerbacks, because Brian Flores is going to have his work cut out for him. Anytime you're starting guys who, couldn't even start at their previous teams, with Isaiah Rodgers, who came over from Philly, Jeffrey Okudah, who came over from Houston, that's always worrisome. And now Jeff Okudah's getting rave reviews. I haven't been at training camp. I haven't seen him. Apparently he's doing well. He was a number 3 overall pick back in the day for the Detroit Lions before he tore that Achilles and his career went south. So maybe he's recapturing some of that magic, but I got to see it to believe it first, because this cornerback group, at least on paper, is maybe the weakest in the NFL.
Okay, guys, now we get to talk about the Detroit Lions. I got ahead of myself, but I'm a sucker for the city of Detroit, so it makes sense that I was excited to talk about the Lions. All eyes were on the new coordinators for Detroit in their first preseason game. It didn't go great. They turned it over 5 times, had no takeaways, just not a lot of rhythm. Is it cause for concern, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, it should be cause for a little bit of concern. It shouldn't be cause for comfort, because those of us who really enjoy watching the NFC North, they've seen Ben Johnson and his offense for so long. Now he's in Chicago, and they're going to have to come up with some answers. Obviously, they will have good answers. That's why they pay these guys money, too, stepping in to fill those shoes at the coordinator role in Detroit. My question is, when the answers to the test aren't working, when the things that they've maybe learned over their years aren't working in the game, halftime adjustments, maybe you have to make a scheme adjustment early in the first half. What is your answer then? And that remains to be seen. I've got to see it to believe it from these coordinators in Detroit.
And what I'm going to have to see to believe is the health of those superstars along the defensive line. Ali McNeil coming back from a torn ACL, Aiden Hutchinson coming back from that broken leg. Those are 2 guys who, when fully healthy, like beginning of last year, had this as one of the best defenses in the NFL. Obviously, we're not that down the stretch, and obviously you go to that Commanders playoff game, they could have used these 2 guys. So this could be what gets them over the hump, the health of these 2. But if they come back and have kind of a slow season rehabbing those injuries, I just don't see the Lions being able to recapture that magic.
All right, guys, we appreciate the time. We appreciate the insight and the expertise as always. All right, let's take a look ahead at some of the preseason games for the NFC North. You got the Miami Dolphins at the Detroit Lions, who we just spoke about on Saturday. Patriots, Vikings, also a highlight. Packers, Colts, and then Bills at Bears on Sunday.